Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, The Primordial Law. Volume 2, Julie Insect Valley. Chapter 39, 66 The Gods of Julie. 39th of Volume 2. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Those who ranked among the top 10 in the Seven Springs Hall, besides possessing exceptional talent and formidable strength, were all equipped with spiritual artifacts. A spiritual artifact was an integral part of one's power. Shui Zheng was no exception. The 4-foot-long curved sword in his hand was a low-grade spiritual artifact bestowed upon him by the Yang clan when they recruited him. It was thanks to this artifact's defense that he hadn't been completely incapacitated by the thunder and lightning unleashed by the Black Iron Seal. Lying on the ground, sword raised in defense, his eyes locked on Li Wei, who was advancing with his sword drawn. He was also prepared to fight to the death. Li Wei was about to step forward and deliver the fatal blow when an arrow shot by Murong Xiao from afar flew toward him. "Young man, you owe the Chang'an gang a debt, and I've come personally to collect it." The long, drawn-out voice of Tang Yan, the Chang'an gang's vice-gang leader, echoed from deep within the dense forest. The terrifying chi of a 5 seas realm expert sent fallen leaves swirling into the air, surging forward like waves in his wake. Imbued with spiritual power, these leaves transformed into razor-sharp blades, embedding themselves deep into the tree bark. "Your strength is not weak. Once I break through another realm, I'll use you to test my sword." Li Wei tossed these words at Shui Zheng before immediately sheathing his sword and fleeing south. A moment later, he vanished into a swirling mass of black nether mist, accompanied by the sound of tinkling bells, rapidly receding into the distance. Shui Zheng exhaled deeply, relief washing over him. The situation had been dangerous just moments ago, he'd been prepared to unleash his ultimate technique and perish together. Among all the opponents he'd faced in the Spring Surge realm, Li Wei wasn't the strongest, but he was the one who had pushed Shui Zheng to the brink of death. Another breakthrough. Is he aiming for the 9 Springs Supreme? Shui Zheng naturally assumed Li Wei was currently at the 8th Spring Opening Realm. After all, Li Wei wasn't an aberrant humanoid nor a pure immortal physique, just an ordinary mortal. To possess such combat prowess at the 8th Spring Realm was already remarkable. Chang'an gang vice-gang leader Tang Yan arrived on the scene. Murong Xiao also landed nearby. Tang Yan glanced at Shui Zheng's charred arms and demanded coldly, "What happened? With both of your strength combined, you couldn't even take him down." Murong Xiao explained, "He's likely not just a practitioner of martial law, but he's also a spiritual mind master." Shui Zheng flexed his numb arms, unfazed by Tang Yan's glare. He replied calmly, "He's probably a descendant of the Thundercloud Lei Xiao sect. He wields a powerful thunder lightning spiritual artifact and possesses an unknown escape spiritual artifact that emits a bell-like sound." He omitted any mention of the space treasure. Thundercloud Lei Xiao sect. Tang Yan's expression shifted. The Thundercloud sect, located in the Eastern Territory, was one of the ancient myriad sects in the Lingxiao realm, and possibly the most powerful among them. Shui Zheng nodded. Besides the descendants cultivated by the ancient myriad sects and clans, who else in the Spring Surge realm could possess so many spiritual artifacts? Back then, Kang Li himself had several spiritual artifacts for protection even at the Spring Surge realm. Murong Xiao thought over Shui Zheng's analysis and found it increasingly convincing. No wonder the Kandli tribe values him so much, and no wonder his combat prowess is so formidable despite his young age. The Kandli tribe must have known his true identity all along. After a moment of deliberation, Tang Yan's gaze turned cold. So what if he's a descendant of the Thundercloud sect? Those ancient myriad sects and ancient myriad clans cultivate multiple descendants, like raising insects GU. Only the survivor becomes the true inheritor. Besides, if he dies in the Mangshan mountain range, who's to say whether he was devoured by a strange beast or torn apart by a malevolent demon? Shui Zheng, fearing Tang Yan might hesitate to provoke the Thundercloud sect, immediately chimed in. He never revealed his identity, so who knows if he truly is a descendant. The most important thing right now is to carry out the young mistress's orders. But those spiritual artifacts on him. Tang Yan understood instantly. Those few spiritual artifacts only we know about will naturally be divided in secret. Not a word must be leaked. Bringing back a corpse will be enough to satisfy the young mistress. The giant camel released by the evil camel bell was incredibly fast, but it consumed too much spiritual power. Even after Li Wei achieved 6th Spring Opening, he could only ride it for 15 minutes before having to rely on his own 2 legs. Perhaps he needed to reach the 5 Seas realm, open his Qi Sea, or break through the 8th Spring, Fengfu Wind Palace, and 9th Spring, Ancestral Field, to gain the ability to store spiritual power and sustain his flight. For the next 5 days, Li Wei fled through the rugged mountains while nursing his injuries. Every hour, Senior Spirit Tablet would guide him. Tang Yan, Shui Zheng, and Murong Xiao occasionally caught up, but Li Wei never engaged them directly. Each escape was a desperate gamble, and his wounds never fully healed. Once, he nearly suffered a fatal blow from Tang Yan, escaping only by using the evil camel bell and the black iron seal. Throughout this ordeal, his guardian wife never appeared, perhaps because she disapproved of his recent closeness with Li Ling and Kai Yutong. In any case, Li Wei found it unreliable to rely on her for survival. 5 days later, Li Wei, exhausted and covered in wounds, pushed himself day and night, sleeping no more than 2 hours each day. He finally crossed hundreds of miles and reached the edge of the Zhu clan's ancestral realm. Standing atop a waterfall halfway up the mountain, Li Wei gazed into the distance. A majestic snow mountain, unparalleled in its grandeur, sat in the distance, surrounded by countless steep and treacherous peaks and rolling hills. Only its midsection was visible, the top was shrouded in clouds. The dozen or so surrounding peaks were already awe-inspiring, yet they paled in comparison to the central snow mountain, which dominated the landscape with its overwhelming presence. Behind Li Wei, the stone coffin, which had been lying flat on the ground, suddenly stood upright. A voice emerged from within. Do you see that most magnificent and majestic snow mountain? It resembles a crown, its snows never melting throughout the year. Li Wei asked, could that be the tomb of the Azure King? No. Senior Stone Coffin replied, that is the Zhu Divine Mountain, where the Zhu god Qiyu is said to be buried beneath the ancestral snow mountain. Whether he truly lies there is uncertain, but the Zhu Divine Mountain is undoubtedly one of the 3 most dangerous and mysterious places in the entire southern territory. Even at the peak of my cultivation in my lifetime, I nearly lost my life trying to explore it. Li Wei had long heard the name of the Zhu god. Initially, he had been startled, as the name was too similar to the Qiyu from ancient Wuxia mythology, making it impossible not to draw comparisons. Hearing Senior Stone Coffin's words, Li Wei's heart stirred once more. He had already guessed the identity of the person in the coffin with 80 or 90% certainty. In life, this individual had been so powerful that even the clan chiefs, sect masters, and elders of Li province today wouldn't have even seen his shadow. Yet, trespassing on his own ancestor's tomb had nearly cost him his life. Senior Stone Coffin continued, according to tradition, the Zhu god had 81 children in total, all buried around Zhu Divine Mountain, where they transformed into the peaks and hills you see before you. 9 of these 81 children became the ancestors of the 9 great tribes of the Zhu clan. What about the remaining 72? Li Wei asked. This question clearly struck a blind spot in Senior Stone Coffin's knowledge. After a long pause, Senior Stone Coffin finally continued, Azure King was the eldest son of the Zhu god and the ancestor of the Kandli tribe. He was buried closest to Zhu Divine Mountain, on the first peak to the right of the snowy mountain. Li Wei saw the mountain. It was imposing, its peak nearly touching the clouds. Senior Stone Coffin added, however, this vast forest occupied by the ancestral realm is incredibly dangerous. It's protected by numerous guards left by ancient sages, even containing the power of the Zhu god themselves. If you don't follow the few remaining escape paths, even an immortal realm cultivator who dares to enter will likely suffer heavy casualties. So as long as we enter this ancestral realm, we'll be much safer. Even if those people chasing us had 10 times their courage, they wouldn't dare follow. From now on, I'll accompany you. Raise the 9 sovereigns banner. It can silently open the light veil barrier guarding the ancestral realm. An hour later, Li Wei arrived at the base of a waterfall. Carrying the stone coffin on his shoulder and holding the 3-meter-long white 9 sovereigns banner, he resembled a funeral attendant. After opening the barrier's light veil, he finally entered the ancestral realm of the Zhu clan. How bizarre. The moment he stepped into the ancestral realm, the sky instantly darkened, as if night had fallen. Silence enveloped the surroundings, not even a bird's chirp could be heard. In the sky, countless stars appeared. Remarkably similar to the Milky Way galaxy. Li Wei stood stunned for a moment before immediately asking Senior Stone Coffin. He was told that an ancestral realm, by definition, had to be different from the outside world. It was a miniature world created by the Zhu god. As for the celestial stars, they had always been there since ancient times, and Senior Stone Coffin admitted he couldn't comprehend them either. Could this be a path back to Earth? Li Wei wondered inwardly. Just as he was pondering this, a 100-meter-tall hill in front of him suddenly began to writhe. It raised a bull's head the size of palaces, its eyes radiating a terrifying, soul-chilling aura. Countless rocks and stones cascaded down its back with a thunderous rumble. The night was thick, making it impossible to see clearly. But Li Wei's scalp prickled with fear, and he wanted nothing more than to turn and flee. This place was far too dangerous for his current cultivation level. Senior Stone Coffin said, "Don't panic. It's the grave guardian beast, the mud bull. Use the 9 sovereigns banner to clear the path, it won't harm you." How can I not panic? Li Wei held his breath, forced a stiff smile at the hill-like mud bull, and tiptoed past its massive form from below. He couldn't shake the feeling that the bull's head was fixed on him. Fortunately, after he passed, the colossal head lowered again, and the creature remained motionless. Whoosh! He followed a luminous stream that glowed like a ribbon of light in the darkness. After walking for about half an hour, green orbs suddenly erupted from the ground, each containing a face basin-sized armored creature. They had razor-sharp mantis-like claws and humanoid heads, giving them an utterly sinister and terrifying appearance. Li Wei swallowed hard, his hand gripping the Nine Sovereigns banner dripping with sweat. Don't panic. They're the Yankei, a grave guardian insect race. Sweep them with the Nine Sovereigns banner, and they'll clear the path on their own, Senior Stone Coffin said calmly. This big. You're saying they're insects. Li Wei could sense that these Yankei were far from ordinary. Each one radiated a danger far more intense than Shui Zheng had ever posed. As instructed, he gently waved the Nine Sovereigns banner. The Yankei on the ground immediately became docile, automatically parting to create a path. After passing through the Yankei-infested area, Li Wei couldn't help but ask, Master Coffin, what exactly are we retrieving from the tomb of the Azure King? Given the dangers here, I feel like I could use another 2 years of training before attempting this. Senior Stone Coffin chuckled. Rest assured, I wouldn't have brought you here without at least a 90% chance of success. Besides, you're no longer at 5 springs, you've reached 6 springs and have cultivated every last bit of your psychic telekinesis power. I believe the risks are now negligible. Someone's here. Li Wei heard something and immediately planted the Nine Sovereigns banner upside down on the ground. He crouched down, peering in the direction of the sound. Blank. End of chapter. Novel. The Primordial Law. Volume 2. Julie Insect Valley. Chapter 40-67 The Tomb of the Azure King. 40th of Volume 2. Translator. Shadow Knight AK. Editor. Shadow Knight AK. It was the sound of carriages and horses, and there were many of them. How could a large number of carriages and horses appear in such a dangerous place as the Julie Ancestral Realm? Under the cover of night, 8 yin banners led the way, scattering paper money in the wind. A long procession of carriages approached from afar, passing along a paper money road about 50 paces from Li Wei. The carriages were filled with young boys and girls. The drivers were all dressed in gray-white cloth robes. Li Wei counted carefully and found that there were 83 carriages in total. In the last carriage, a middle-aged man pulled back the curtain, revealing a tall figure and a stern face. In a low voice, he shouted ahead, hurry up. Get out of the ancestral realm as quickly as possible. The middle-aged man appeared to be around 50 years old and bore a 4 or 5-point resemblance to Li Songolin, the first commander of the Kandli Armor Division. After the procession had moved far away and the sound had faded, Li Wei finally lifted the ghost banner that had been concealing him, lost in thought. Judging by their attire, they seem to be from the Kandli tribe, he murmured. The Kandli tribe is likely the one using this paper money yin road to enter and exit the ancestral realm, Senior Stone Coffin said. Li Wei frowned. That's strange. Where did these children come from? And why are they being transported out? If we continue forward, we should find the answer, Senior Stone Coffin said, as if he already knew the truth. After several hours of travel toward Julie Divine Mountain, Li Wei encountered a pale blue light screen woven by spiritual mind masters. Rising from the earth and connecting to the sky, it was adorned with mysterious scriptures. Li Wei swept the Nine Sovereigns banner across the screen, thinning the light and revealing the scene within, a vast rice field shrouded in rosy mist. Each stalk of rice towered over 10 meters tall, its plump, crystal-clear ears bearing the faint outlines of developing fetuses. After just a glance, Li Wei retracted the Nine Sovereigns banner and collapsed onto the ground, reeling from the shock. The impact struck him deep within, as if a fundamental aspect of his humanity had been challenged. Humans could truly be grown like crops cultivation. Senior Stone Coffin fell silent for a moment before speaking. Human cultivation has existed since ancient times, cultivated by forbidden demon kings and dead spirits as a food source. The human world has always opposed its cultivation. 1,000 years ago, we, including Chanhai Guanwu, shared this stance. That's why no one in the Lingxiao realm dared to cultivate it. If I were still in charge of the Zhu clan and the Kandli tribe, I would have dragged the thief responsible for this human cultivation out and punished him according to our clan's law. The voice from the stone coffin expressed anger in its calm tone. Li Wei forced a wry smile. If the entire Lingxiao realm is already like this, the Zhu clan can't afford not to do it. They will fall behind other powers. Once the competition intensifies, the upper limit of human potential will rise higher and higher, but the lower limit will plummet. The sudden appearance of so many cultivated humans will inevitably shatter people's values. How can this world possibly avoid war? If I were powerful enough, I would never let this chaos continue. Then, he added with a self-deprecating laugh, haha, never mind. With my current cultivation, I can't even establish a foothold in this world, let alone change it. Senior Stone Coffin said, Wei Yi, I sense you're close to finding what you truly desire. Li Wei stood up, no longer looking at the fields on the other side of the light curtain. He hoisted the stone coffin onto his shoulders, raised the Nine Sovereigns banner, and continued walking toward Zhuli Divine Mountain. Becoming a hidden one and breaking through the Five Seas realm as soon as possible is the only way to survive. Otherwise, in this vast and turbulent world, I'll just be swept along by the current, an anonymous nobody whose life is worth less than grass, never able to participate in the grand scheme of things. 3 days later, Li Wei arrived at the tomb of the Azure King. The tomb was only a few miles from Zhuli Divine Mountain, a 1,000-meter-high, precipitous peak shrouded in mist and clouds. Stone tablets and carvings were scattered everywhere. The plaza before the tomb was filled with various exotic otherworldly coffins. After retrieving these coffins, the Kandli tribe didn't sell all of them. The most extraordinary ones were stored in the tomb of the Azure King. They couldn't understand or open them now, but they believed that future generations would produce exceptional individuals capable of deciphering them. Along the divine path leading to the tomb gate stood stone horses, stone monkeys, stone elephants, and other guardian beasts. Stone lanterns and tripods for sacrificial offerings were also arranged along the path. Senior Stone Coffin asked, "How many days of food do you have left?" Senior Spirit Tablet reminded me, so I prepared thoroughly. If I ration carefully, I can make it last a month without a problem. Li Wei pulled out a piece of dried meat and popped it into his mouth. Senior Stone Coffin nodded. Good. Don't enter the tomb gate yet. I'll teach you some insect scripture. With your talent, you should be able to master it quickly. Insect scriptures, along with beast scriptures, sacred scriptures, curse scriptures, alchemy scriptures, artifact scriptures, and others, wasn't a traditional form of writing. It was created by supreme spiritual mind masters. Instead of being written by hand, it was formed using psychic telekinesis power to manipulate spiritual light flames, drawing and solidifying them into characters. Insect scripture is a method used to subdue and control insects. Li Wei asked, "Master Coffin, you asked me to come here to retrieve something. Could it be a ferocious insect? Or perhaps there's a dangerous insect in the tomb, and I need to learn the insect control law." Senior Stone Coffin explained, 1,000 years ago, during my peak cultivation in life, I ventured into a fallen immortal realm and obtained an insect nest. It contained 7 insect eggs, conservatively estimated to be Xuanhuan monarch marquis level. I stored them in the tomb of the Azure King to nurture them. Now, they're yours, young man. Li Wei gasped. In the Lingxiao realm, the surface was ruled by human martial mystic cultivators and demon kings, but the underground belonged to the insect race. Master Qi of the Chenggulan gang controlled the giant spider, a mere soldier-grade ferocious insect. Yet, even that gave him the status to be treated with respect by the Chenggulan gang leader. Not all insect tamers are powerful, it depends on the level of the insect swarm they command. However, among spiritual mind masters of the same cultivation level, insect tamers are undoubtedly the strongest contenders for the title of most powerful. Especially in this era of chaos, insect tamers with their swarm attack capabilities hold a higher status than any other spiritual mind master. Monarch marquis level insects are already worthy of being listed on the list of extraordinary insects. Upon reaching adulthood, they possess the strength of immortal realm martial mystic cultivators. 7 of them meant 7 immortal realm cultivators. If he truly becomes an insect tamer who commands 7 Xuanhuan monarch marquis level strange insects, who else but him would be qualified to be the hidden one of the Zhuli clan? You must understand that adult monarch marquis level strange insects can even transform into human form and possess the ability to summon and command the underground insect clan. Even human cultivators would have to bow before them, respectfully addressing them as monarch marquis. Moreover, Senior Stone Coffin had said, at the very least, they're monarch marquis level. Li Wei quickly recovered from his shock and regained his composure. 1,000 years have passed. The insect eggs must have hatched long ago. Senior Stone Coffin replied, insect eggs of this caliber don't hatch so easily. Back then, I asked an exceptionally skilled insect tamer from the Lingxiao realm to help me analyze them. Even with the heaven law and earth spring in the tomb of the Azure King to nurture them, it would still take 1 or 2,000 years for them to hatch naturally. I had intended to leave them for the descendants of the Zhuli clan as a clan foundation. But the sudden outbreak of the Great War 1,000 years ago left no time to inform anyone. I was whisked away by the spatial power of the Shaoyang star. Li Wei asked, if they haven't hatched, do I have to wait another few hundred years? Senior Stone Coffin chuckled. Natural hatching is indeed unpredictable. But after 1,000 years of nurturing, there are now artificial methods to accelerate their maturation and break their shells. Did you buy those items I told you to get? Fire cloud stone, 9-leaf cattail grass, blood crystal. After buying all this stuff, I'm practically broke again. That mansion in the suburban domain is probably already taken back by the Yang clan and the Chenggulan gang. Li Wei took out the 6 items he had bought earlier as instructed by Senior Spirit Tablet. A sense of pressure weighed on him. He silently prayed that Yang Yun wouldn't die, that was his biggest asset. Oh, and there was old Zhao's 100,000 silver coins too. The stone coffin stood upright again, using the coffin as a brush to write insect scripture on the ground. 7 characters in total. Each character was incredibly complex, with over 30 strokes. They didn't resemble words at all, but rather intricate, irregular patterns that looked more like paintings than scripture. Senior Stone Coffin said, "Normally, your spirit tablet master should be teaching you insect scripture. She's an incredibly powerful insect tamer in the Lingxiao realm. But these 7 characters carved on the insect egg are my work, so only I can teach them to you." Right. Insect scripture is usually taught by using spiritual light to imprint the characters onto you. But in my current state, I can only teach by writing them out. You might find it much harder to comprehend this way. But I believe in your talent. You'll be fine. Li Wei could only force a bitter smile, knowing that in the eyes of his 3 masters, he was already considered a cultivation genius far surpassing even the pure immortal physique. As he observed and memorized the insect scripture on the ground, he asked, "Master Coffin, if I hadn't cultivated spiritual light, wouldn't my trip to the tomb of the Azure King have been in vain?" Senior Stone Coffin replied, "No, you could still use your blood to directly draw the insect scripture on the insect eggs. Once they absorb it, they'll naturally recognize you as their master. However, this greatly increases the risk. For example, what if they've already hatched? By cultivating the insect scripture, you gain a means to subdue them, minimizing the risk." Li Wei fell silent, crossed his legs, and began channeling strands of spiritual light flame from his third eye spiritual realm. Using each strand of flame as a brushstroke, he meticulously drew the insect scripture. The difficulty was indeed immense. Even after exhausting nearly all his spiritual light, he made no substantial progress. He would need to nurture his spiritual light before attempting again. While nurturing his spiritual light, Li Wei didn't neglect his martial mystic cultivation. He aimed to break through the heavenly spiritual atop his 7th spring as quickly as possible, lest he be forced to flee for his life from Tang Yan, Shui Zheng, and others upon leaving. The 7th spring represented the peak of the spring surge realm, and most martial mystic cultivators in the 5 seas realm only possessed 7 springs. This peaceful cultivation environment was truly precious. Time flew, and 20 days passed in the blink of an eye. Li Wei had mastered all 7 insect scripture characters, and the barrier of the 7th spring showed signs of loosening. He was about to strike while the iron was hot, aiming to break through it in the next 2 days. Rustle. A cold wind swept out from the forest, causing his hair and robes to flutter. Li Wei's eyes snapped open. He sniffed the air, catching a faint, familiar scent carried on the wind. It's Li Ling. What's she doing here at the tomb of the Azure King? His senses were sharp. While he couldn't sniff out scents from dozens of kilometers away like a bear, he wasn't far off. The voice from the stone coffin spoke, "She must have a way to find you. Perhaps it's the Netherlight Guide's perceptive wisdom, or some other reason. Since it's an unknown factor, we shouldn't involve her. Let's go, enter the tomb now." Li Wei agreed with Master Coffin's assessment. Everything was ready, and they couldn't afford any mishaps at this crucial moment. He shouldered the stone coffin and held the 9 sovereigns banner, racing toward the end of the divine path and the 2 massive stone tomb gates towering over a dozen meters high. As he neared the gates, Li Wei narrowed his eyes. He noticed that each gate was adorned with a star chart, studded with countless silver and yellow gemstones representing stars. The chart on the left resembled the Milky Way galaxy. The one on the right felt familiar too, like the Yellow Springs galaxy he had seen on the bronze ship. Blank. End of chapter. Novel. The Primordial Law. Volume 2. Julie Insect Valley. Chapter 41-68 The Abbot's Dao Domain. 41st of Volume 2. Translator. Shadow Knight AK. Editor. Shadow Knight AK. Li Wei carefully examined the 2 star maps adorning the giant stone tomb door. Silver and yellow gemstones, imbued with divine radiance, were embedded in the stone. Their material was unknown, but their sheer number and dense arrangement created a truly vast, starry expanse. He compared the Milky Way on the door to the night sky he remembered, searching for familiar constellations like Orion and the Big Dipper to find the answer he desperately sought. But he couldn't discern it. Instead, the more he looked, the more dizzy he felt, his eyelids growing heavier. Clearly, the star maps contained ancient and potent psychic telekinesis power, far more than mere decorative embellishments. Senior Stone Coffin noticed his condition and immediately warned, "Don't stare for too long. These star maps are extraordinary, connected to the Zhu Li god and the Zhu Li clan's most ancient secrets." Li Wei snapped back to his senses and quickly averted his gaze. Truly worthy of being the Zhu Li clan's ancestral realm. Nothing here was simple or ordinary. If he hadn't had Master Coffin and the 9 sovereigns banner, he would have died a dozen times over by now. Following Senior Stone Coffin's instructions, Li Wei systematically channeled his spiritual power into the gemstones embedded in the tomb door. "Be careful," Senior Stone Coffin warned gravely, "don't make a single mistake. The 2-star maps on the tomb of the Azure King's door contain over 10,000 spiritual light formation inscriptions. Once triggered, we'll be reduced to nothingness. Li Wei immediately held his breath, trying to keep his hand steady. The more spiritual light formation inscriptions a formation contained, the more powerful it would be. 100 inscriptions could protect a village, 1,000 could defend a city. A single 1,000 inscriptions formation could safeguard an entire city. Formation deployment wasn't merely a matter of piling up inscriptions. Each inscription was fixed, likely the culmination of a formation master's lifetime of study. 10,000 spiritual light formation inscriptions guarding a tomb. No matter how many grave robbers came, they would all meet their end. As Li Wei carefully channeled his spiritual power, he couldn't help but ask, I'm curious. Logically, since Azure Kang King is the ancestor of the Kandli tribe, he shouldn't want his descendants disturbing his eternal rest. Shouldn't the formation inscriptions on this tomb door be impossible for anyone to decipher? Before Li Wei could finish speaking, Senior Stone Coffin said, it took me 100 years to decipher it completely. Li Wei remained silent. Senior Stone Coffin knew what Li Wei was thinking, probably praising him for being so damn filial son, so he explained, I was forced to do it. The Nether Realm world has been ravaged by world-ending wars multiple times, not just the one 1,000 years ago. The Zhu clan has a long history, and during these wars, parts of our cultivation law were destroyed, especially the content beyond the immortal realm, which is now severely incomplete. As the chief of the Zhu clan 1,000 years ago, I wanted to restore it and also find my own path to immortality. So, I opened several ancestral tombs in the ancestral realm, searching for the original chapters of the law. But after centuries of fruitless searching, I found nothing. Finally, I tried to break into the Zhu divine mountain and disturb the tomb of the Zhu god, but I nearly perished there. Senior Stone Coffin knew Li Wei had likely already guessed his identity, so he stopped hiding it. Li Wei was secretly shocked by Master Coffin's power in life. His lifespan had been incredibly long. Spirit Tablet Master and Master Guan were probably not far behind. No wonder the three of them hadn't completely died even after reaching this state. No wonder they had been reluctant to reveal their identities. The contrast between their former power and glory and their current state, a wisp of a soul flickering like a dying candle in the wind, was too great for them to bear. They didn't want their old friends or future descendants to know. Moreover, if their identities were exposed, they and Li Wei would be in extreme danger. Alright. Activating the final silver gem, Li Wei quickly retreated 2 steps. The ground trembled, and a thunderous roar echoed through the air. Complex, rune-like patterns, shaken loose from the stone door's surface, began to glow faintly. The 2 heavy stone doors slowly creaked open. Woo! Inside, darkness swirled, and a bone-chilling wind poured out, like icy blades slicing through the skin. Faintly, from the depths of the darkness, came a strange wailing, a mournful, ear-splitting sound that seemed to emanate from the depths of hell. Li Wei's expression shifted. He swallowed nervously and said, Master Coffin. I have a feeling. Something's not right. Senior Stone Coffin remained confident. Don't be afraid. The tomb has been sealed for 1,000 years. Now that it has an opening, the wind naturally stirs the artifacts within, causing these strange noises. I cleared out all the dangers from the tomb of the Azure King 1,000 years ago. Just treat it like coming home. Li Wei, still half believing, tightened his grip on the 9 sovereigns banner and stepped through the tomb gate. Boom. The 5-foot-thick, over 100-foot-tall tomb gate slammed shut instantly. The 9 skull heads atop the 9 sovereigns banner pulsed with energy, causing its 9 white streamers and inscribed scriptures to glow faintly, illuminating the vast, pitch-black tomb passage where not even his fingers were visible. The ground was paved with smooth jade stones, and the walls were made of hard rock embedded with metallic particles. The tomb passage's ceiling, level with the stone gate, was also over 100 feet high, creating a sense of grandeur that dwarfed the imperial tombs of Earth, which now seemed like slums in comparison. Senior Stone Coffin spoke in a casual, relaxed tone, now do you believe me? There's no danger here. Everything is peaceful and serene. I used to live here. For several years. Before he could finish speaking, a strange female laughter echoed from the depths of the tomb passage's darkness, both alluring and chillingly sinister. The layered echoes amplified the sound, threatening to scare the 3 souls and 7 spirits right out of one's body. Li Wei's muscles tensed as he stared intently into the dark tomb passage ahead. Taking a deep breath, he glanced at the stone coffin resting on his shoulder. That laughter. It's so clear. It can't be the wind, can it? Senior Stone Coffin remained silent for a moment before replying, perhaps it's just a hallucination. Thud thud. Footsteps echoed through the darkness. Then, a pink mist billowed from the depths of the tomb passage, shot through with wisps of white light. A tall, slender figure of breathtaking beauty emerged from the mist, her face obscured, but her long, jade-white legs were clearly visible. Her long hair flowed behind her, and countless petals accompanied her every step. If Li Wei had encountered such a sight elsewhere, he would have found it pleasing to the eye and been tempted to linger. But here, it sent a chill down his spine. He turned to flee, only to find the tomb door sealed shut. The voice from the stone coffin suddenly sounded uncertain. It seems something has gone wrong. Use the Nine Sovereigns banner. It can ward off evil. Just try to capture her. See if you can seal her inside. The enchanting laughter emanating from the exquisite figure ahead suddenly transformed into a shrill, monstrous shriek, like a vengeful ghost or a demonic fiend. Blood mist, shimmering veils, and petals, along with her terrifyingly distorted form, hurtled toward Li Wei at the base of the tomb door with unnatural speed, her arms outstretched. Li Wei channeled all his spiritual power into the Nine Sovereigns banner. Whoosh! The radiance emanating from the banner's 9 white streamers surged, illuminating the tomb passage as bright as day. The light dispersed the blood mist and shimmering veils, colliding head-on with the exquisite figure. With a thunderous roar, powerful shockwaves and waves of light reverberated through the passage. The exquisite figure seemed to be suppressed by the Nine Sovereigns banner. With a pained scream, and she fled swiftly into the depths of the dark tomb passage. Li Wei exhaled deeply, relieved that the Nine Sovereigns banner truly possessed the power to ward off evil. He said with lingering trepidation, Master Coffin, let's get out of here quickly. I feel like I could really use another 2 years of training before coming back. Take 50 steps forward, Senior Stone Coffin said suddenly, as if he had just realized something. Li Wei still dared to take 50 steps. After carefully walking 50 steps, he stopped. Without Senior Stone Coffin's instructions, his gaze was already fixed on a mural on the left stone wall of the passage. The mural depicted a sea and a lake. Standing by the lake was a young woman of peerless beauty, clad in green gauze and feathered robes. Her figure was graceful and slender, her legs long and straight, rendered with lifelike detail. Senior Stone Coffin said, I painted this mural when I lived here. I added a trace of her demon blood to the pigments. What we encountered just now was likely the painting spirit of this mural. 1,000 years ago, a careless act nearly led to disaster. Fortunately, she's still very weak. From within the Dao ancestors' Tai Chi fish, Senior Spirit Tablet's cold, deep voice echoed, no wonder you often disappeared for years at a time back then. You were here, painting a demon. Don't think I don't know who she is, Sha Jin, the demon of Qixia Lake, the most beautiful woman in Qixia. Master Guan's voice chimed in, always eager to stir things up, I know Sha Jin well. She truly deserves the title of, most beautiful woman. If she were still alive, she'd undoubtedly be one of the demon kings of the Lingxiao realm by now. Wei Yi, after you leave, please ask around for Master Guan. I want to rekindle my relationship with her. Senior Stone Coffin immediately explained, it's just a mural. You all participated in the demon calamity back then. We collected a lot of demon blood during that battle. Living here, I just painted it out of boredom. Old Coffin, why are you talking so incoherently? Master Guan chuckled. Senior Stone Coffin replied, the mural in the tomb passage isn't the only one I painted. I've painted every malevolent demon whose blood I collected. Could they have all spawned painting spirits? Li Wei fell silent. Senior Spirit Tablet said, Wei Yi, don't fear these painting spirits. Just use your sword to scrape off the mural, and the spirits will naturally dissipate. Right. Li Wei's heart raced with anxiety, so he acted decisively, immediately drawing the yellow dragon sword. Deep within the dark tomb passage, the stunning figure seemed to sense danger and charged out again, riding a crimson mist of light. Accompanying her was a saber-toothed giant ape demon, towering several dozen feet tall with 4 arms. Both spirits were fiercely hostile, determined to stop Li Wei from destroying the mural. Clang! Clang! 2 sword strikes landed. A deep sword mark in the shape of a cross landed on the mural, sending fragments of stone and dust flying. The exquisite figure vanished in a scream, reduced to ash and smoke. Awoo! The saber-toothed giant ape demon roared, its voice shaking the tomb passage. It clenched its fists and swung its arms at Li Wei, its attack fierce but merely possessing a powerful aura, its strength less than that of Tang Yan from the Five Seas realm. Li Wei didn't meet the demon head-on. He executed the clear void cicada chasing step, slipping beneath it. Moving at top speed, he charged deeper into the tomb passage. After a dozen steps, he spotted the mural depicting the 4-armed saber-toothed giant ape. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 sword strikes shattered the mural. The saber-toothed giant ape demon, which had pursued him, let out a frustrated roar before dissipating like smoke and dust. Li Wei continued forward, destroying 17 murals, whether they had spawned painting spirits or not, with 2 sword strikes each, until he reached the end of the tomb passage. Carrying the coffin, he emerged from the passage into a vast, open area. The light emanating from the 9 Sovereigns banner couldn't penetrate the darkness here. The air was frigid, like entering an ice cellar. Looking up, Li Wei saw only pitch darkness above, with no visible ceiling. After walking for 15 minutes through this vast open area, a circular formation of giant stones appeared ahead. The formation was 100 meters in diameter, with each stone several times taller than Li Wei himself, making it a truly awe-inspiring sight. However, the formation was severely damaged, with many stones toppled to the ground, disrupting its original structure. Master Coffin, did you create this too? Li Wei exclaimed, deeply impressed by the stone formation's complexity, though he couldn't guess its purpose. Senior Stone Coffin replied, this formation has always existed within the tomb of the Azure King. It has nothing to do with me. The stone used to build it is quite unique. I've never seen such material in the Lingxiao realm. I studied it for a while, but didn't get very far. Let's not worry about it for now. We should first go to the Heaven Law and Earth Spring to retrieve the insect egg. We'll take the hidden passage on the right. The Heaven Law Earth Spring is a spring originated from heaven and earth, similar to the spring within a martial mystic cultivator's body. It draws law from the surrounding environment, transforming it into spiritual qi that flows out continuously. Large Heaven Law and Earth Springs can transform the surrounding area into a Dao domain, like the one in Zhuli City. The Heaven Law and Earth Spring in the tomb of the Azure King was naturally no match for the one in Zhuli City, merely a small spring. Li Wei emerged from the hidden passage and saw the Heaven Law and Earth Spring in the distance. The spring, no larger than a bowl, floated several meters above the ground. Yet it was incredibly mystical, not only gushing forth thick, visible spiritual qi but also spewing out tiny particles of light that illuminated the darkness, creating a vast, ethereal space like a celestial realm. Moreover, the sound of flowing water could be heard. Beneath the spring, the abbot's Dao domain had formed, where the dense spiritual qi condensed into a thick mist, creating a miniature Dao domain. From dozens of meters away, Li Wei activated his breathing technique. Instantly, his heavenly spirit trembled slightly, and the solid barrier of his seventh spring felt like a thin membrane, as if it could be pierced with a gentle touch. The spiritual qi here is incredibly dense. No wonder everyone is vying for a spot at the Zhuli Dao Academy. Cultivating in a Dao domain would undoubtedly double one's cultivation speed, Li Wei marveled. Senior Stone Coffin said, this Heaven Law and Earth Spring seems to have grown larger, already forming an abbot's Dao domain. The insect nest is placed on the stone altar directly beneath the spring. Blank. End of chapter. Novel, The Primordial Law. Volume 2, Zhuli Insect Valley. Chapter 42, 69 Killing Murong Shao. 42nd of Volume 2. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Li Wei placed the stone coffin and 9 sovereigns banner on the ground. As a precaution, he brought the yellow dragon sword and cautiously approached the spring. The spiritual qi ahead was so dense it resembled a swirling cloud, constantly releasing a waterfall of mist. The stone platform within was invisible to the naked eye. Kai. Kai. An unusual sound echoed. From within the swirling cloud of spiritual qi, a fluttering sound emerged, like a cicada's wings, or perhaps a moth's, loud and piercing. Li Wei's gaze sharpened. He pushed off the ground and retreated 2 meters. Whoosh. The cloud of spiritual qi was scattered by the fluttering wings, revealing a massive, moth-like insect crawling out. It was nearly a meter long, its body radiating a multicolored, glass-like glow. Its 6 sharp claws looked like they were forged from metal, each hook razor sharp. Its eyes held a dangerous, ferocious aura as it crawled forward, its wings spread and trembling. The outer wings were iridescent and colorful, while the inner wings were thin, membranous, and insect-like. Senior Stone Coffin said, this is bad. They've hatched early. It must be because the Heaven Law and Earth Spring has expanded. Quickly use the insect scripture to subdue it. Which insect scripture should I use? Li Wei sensed danger. He retreated while asking, Senior Stone Coffin, why can't I see the insect scripture you carved on the phoenix-winged moth emperor? Senior Stone Coffin replied, back then, I carved the 7 insect scriptures onto 7 insect eggs. Even after they hatched, the scriptures should have remained imprinted on them. But now, they're invisible. Senior Spirit Tablet, with his deeper understanding of extraordinary insects, explained, because its level exceeds our expectations. If I'm not mistaken, this is a phoenix-winged moth monarch, not just monarch marquis, but emperor monarch level. The insect scriptures you carved has been hidden within its body. What? Emperor monarch level? Master Guan exclaimed in shock. Senior Spirit Tablet continued, judging by its current size, already 3 feet long, it's clearly no longer a larva. I estimate its combat power is no less than that of a Immortal Realm martial mystic cultivator. Hearing this, Li Wei's vision blurred, and his calves began to cramp. Am I here to collect insects or to feed them? Senior Stone Coffin, ever rational, quickly analyzed, that's not right. The tomb of the Azure King has no food. It couldn't have grown from a larva to the Immortal Realm. Moreover, if it truly possessed Immortal Realm strength, its intelligence would be exceptionally high. It would have long broken out of the tomb. Wei Yi, it's bluffing. Li Wei could clearly sense the terrifying aura emanating from the approaching phoenix-winged moth emperor. He wouldn't dare gamble on it bluffing. Suddenly, inspiration struck, perhaps there's another way. He exclaimed. He immediately activated the Fusong Divine Tree Meditation technique, simultaneously channeling the spiritual light flame from his third eye spiritual realm to activate the Tao Ancestors Tai Chi fish. The two bronze fish completed a full rotation, unleashing a surge of spatial power. Whoosh! A subtle ripple of spatial distortion spread outward, instantly pulling the approaching phoenix-winged moth emperor into the blood mud land inside the Buddha's relic. It was utterly unable to break free. A moment later, Senior Spirit Tablet's voice echoed from within the Buddha's relic. Indeed, it was bluffing. It has reverted to its true form, a mere inch long, a larva. Whoosh! From the swirling cloud of spiritual chi beneath the heaven law and earth spring, 6-inch-long phoenix-winged moth emperors emerged, each no larger than a moth. Their bodies shimmered with iridescent colors, a dazzling spectacle. They flew with incredible speed, like arrows, simultaneously attacking Li Wei. Without hesitation, Li Wei immediately entered the microscopic world within the Buddha's relic, determined to capture the first one. After experiencing intense weightlessness, Li Wei crashed onto the blood-mud floor of the space, which was only a few dozen feet across. He looked up at the phoenix-winged moth emperor perched on the bone urn, its body now only about an inch long. Li Wei relaxed, chuckling, just a larva, and already so intelligent. You almost scared me. Whoosh! The first insect scriptures coalesced and shot out from his brow. Li Wei hadn't neglected his psychic power cultivation recently. The spiritual light flame in his third eye spiritual realm had doubled in size, now as large as a bean. The phoenix-winged moth emperor soared into the air like an arrow loosed from a bow, directly smashing through the insect scriptures and hurtling toward Li Wei's brow. The first insect scriptures was useless against it. Li Wei raised his sword to block. Bang! A metallic clang echoed as if two iron blocks had collided. The force of the moth's impact was even more terrifying than the long arrow shot by Morong Xiao. The impact sent Li Wei reeling backward, nearly causing him to lose his grip on the yellow dragon sword. The sound of fluttering wings filled the air. The moth burst into a burst of speed, swerving and slamming into Li Wei's chest. Li Wei dared not meet the attack head-on. He sidestepped to dodge, and at the same moment, the second insect scriptures finished forming in his brow and flew toward the moth. The spiritual light insect scriptures had barely left his forehead when it resonated with the insect scriptures within the phoenix-winged moth emperor. The insect scriptures within the phoenix-winged moth emperor flickered, slowing its flight and suppressing its power. Whoosh! In the next instant, it was struck by the insect scriptures and crashed to the ground. Li Wei looked at the deep wound on his armpit, torn open by the moth's wing. The gash was so deep it nearly reached the bone, but he showed no anger. Instead, he endured the pain and chuckled, such terrifying power in such a tiny body. And this is just a larva. A moment later, a wave of lingering fear washed over him. Thank goodness the second insect scriptures hit its mark. Otherwise, today would have been truly dangerous. Quickly use your blood to draw the second insect scriptures, using the same inscriptions. Only then will you truly subdue it, and it will obey only you from now on, Senior Spirit Tablet reminded him. With Li Wei's current psychic power, he could only remain on the Buddha's relic for a short time before being pulled back to his original world space. Time was precious. He retrieved the insect pattern glyph needle, one of the 6 treasures he had purchased earlier, and immediately began the ritual. Just before the sensation of weightlessness hit, he managed to carve the blood-drawn insect scriptures into the phoenix-winged moth emperor's abdomen. Then, he quickly scooped up the spirit tablet and bone urn. After experiencing the weightlessness, they all returned together to the underground space where the tomb of the Azure King lay. Li Wei knew that with his current cultivation level, he stood no chance against 6 phoenix-winged moth emperors. There was only one way. First, to capture all 6 phoenix-winged moth emperors within the blood-mud space of the microscopic world, and then subdue them one by one. He had brought Senior Spirit Tablet and Master Guan with him out of concern that they might be attacked by the phoenix-winged moth emperors. At this moment, the 6 phoenix-winged moth emperors were frantically ramming the stone coffin, producing thunderous thuds like fists and kicks. Fortunately, the coffin was made of a special material, otherwise, Senior Coffin's remains would have been torn to shreds. Whoosh! Sensing Li Wei's presence once more, the 6 phoenix-winged moth emperors swarmed toward him. Li Wei stood his ground, unyielding. Only when the 6 phoenix-winged moth emperors had closed within 3 meters did he form a hand seal, using the spiritual light flame to activate the Tao Ancestors Tai Chi fish. Whoosh! After a ripple of spatial power surged outward, all 6 phoenix-winged moth emperors were caught in the net and sealed within the Buddha's relic. Having activated the Tao Ancestors Tai Chi fish 3 times in quick succession, Li Wei's third eye spiritual realm darkened, and the spiritual light flame nearly flickered out from exhaustion. Steadying himself, he slowly approached the heaven law and earth spring and entered the abbot's Tao domain. After confirming there were no dangers, he sat cross-legged, absorbing the luminous particles emanating from the spring above him and began cultivating spiritual chi through breath technique. He cultivated both psychic telekinesis power and martial law simultaneously. Half a day later, his third eye spiritual realm began to glow once more. A soft pop echoed overhead as a faint, straight beam of light shot up from Li Wei's heavenly spirit. The beam was about an inch thick and extended 9 feet high. Everything flowed naturally. Li Wei opened his seventh spring heavenly spirit, officially entering the surging spring peak realm. The three remnant souls in the distance watched his transformations closely. Though stunned by the 9-foot-high heavenly spirit beam, they no longer reacted with the wide-eyed wonder of novices. They had grown somewhat numb. Master Guan said, "Old Coffin, your initial plan was for him to reach surging spring in 2 years, right? I think he'll reach 5 Cs in just 1. Faster is naturally better. But from here on, every step must be solid. The Wind Palace and Ancestral Field aren't easy to open. Even pure immortal physiques sometimes stop at the 7th spring. Talent is a fickle thing. Those who shine brightest must work twice as hard and discipline themselves even more. The slightest lapse can lead to a catastrophic fall. Sometimes, those who start with difficulty end up growing stronger with each step." The remnant soul in the stone coffin had placed immense hope in Li Wei, treating him like a blood relative. He wished for his continued meteoric rise, yet also lived in constant fear of failure. As the Tao Ancestors Tai Chi Fish's master's early guide, the pressure on him was immense. 5 days later, the 2 stone gates of the tomb of the Azure King, each over 100 feet tall, slowly opened. Li Wei emerged, carefully scanning and sensing his surroundings. Finding no trace of Li Ling or martial mystic cultivators from the Kandli tribe, he felt a slight sense of relief. Reaching the plaza before the tomb, he turned and bowed deeply 3 times toward the tomb of the Azure King. Regardless of the circumstances, he had obtained an extraordinary opportunity within. The phoenix-winged moth emperors had been nurtured and hatched by the heaven law and earth spring, and one must show gratitude for such a gift. He didn't touch the otherworldly coffins piled in the plaza, he couldn't. Each was inscribed with array runes. Leaving the ancestral realm. Outside, it was May, the weather hot and the sun blazing. The primeval forest buzzed with cicadas and birdsong, as rabbits darted across the undergrowth, a stark contrast to the deathly stillness of the ancestral realm. Having finally seen daylight again, broken through the 7 springs of breakthrough, and subdued 7 phoenix-winged moth emperors, his injuries fully healed, Li Wei was brimming with vitality and in high spirits. He sprinted along a mountain path at breakneck speed. He came across a pool beneath a waterfall. Plunk. He dove in, washing away a month's worth of accumulated grime. The water in the pool was icy cold, piercing to the bone, yet a sense of refreshing comfort filled his heart. After climbing out, he changed into the last clean robe he had stored in the evil camel bell and strode purposefully toward the mountain's edge. Everything he saw along the way seemed vibrant and full of life. He wanted to touch every grass and tree. His heart overflowed with gratitude for the beauty of the world. Until 2 days later, as he emerged from the dense forest of the Mengshan mountain range, his good mood vanished instantly. He saw a humanoid black shadow hovering in the air. It was Murong Xiao. She carried a massive spiritual artifact bow and quiver on her back. Even after all this time, she's still hunting me. Does she think I'll eventually have to leave the Mengshan mountain range? Li Wei retreated back into the forest and concealed himself. After a moment of thought, he formed a hand seal. A light shone from his brow, and streams of luminous particles emerged, flowing into the Tao Ancestors Tai Chi fish hanging around his neck. Whoosh! 7 phoenix-winged moth emperors materialized, each radiating a fist-sized ball of multicolored light. They circled Li Wei, fluttering like dancers in a vibrant ballet. Using psychic telekinesis power, Li Wei communicated with them, ordering them to attack Murong Xiao in the air. The 7 phoenix-winged moth emperors weren't particularly obedient. Their powerful bloodlines allowed them to resist the insect scriptures to some extent. More importantly, Li Wei's psychic telekinesis power was currently too weak. With no other choice, Li Wei retrieved the 300-year-old treasure herb, 9-leaf cattail grass, and plucked 7 crystal-clear, fragrant leaves to feed them. After each phoenix-winged moth emperor consumed a cattail grass leaf, they became exceptionally lively, chirping excitedly. Li Wei quickly put the remaining cattail grass away, using his psychic telekinesis power to say, "If you don't put in any effort, don't even think about eating again. This 9-leaf cattail grass is worth 30,000 silver coins. What you're eating isn't just food, it's gold, it's silver, it's my blood. Hurry up and go." Oh no, she's leaving. Li Wei, with the 7 phoenix-winged moth emperors in tow, sprinted out of the dense forest to pursue her. Murong Xiaofei, hovering 200 meters above the ground, seethed with resentment. It's been so long, and she still wants me to search the nearby area every day. Does she really think I'm one of the Chang'an gang's lackeys? That brat who trespassed into the Zhu Li clan's ancestral realm is probably already dead in there. I'll head back to Yaoguan first. Murong Xiao. A familiar voice called out faintly from the ground. Murong Xiao turned to look behind her. Standing by the Sui River and waving at her was none other than Li Wei. Her eyes widened in surprise, then filled with joy. What a madman. Knowing she couldn't kill Li Wei, Murong Xiao immediately spread her wings, preparing to fly to Yaoguan to report his presence. Yaoguan City was teeming with experts eager to take Li Wei's life, including her allies, Tang Yan, the vice-gang leader of the Changguan gang, and Shui Zheng, the fourth-ranked disciple of the Seven Springs Hall. Whoosh! The dense sound of wings enveloped her, plunging her vision into darkness and filling her surroundings with multicolored light spots. Thud! Thwack! 7 phoenix-winged moth emperors flitted past Murong Xiao, weaving through her body and around her. Soon, the 21st ranked Spring Surge Realm expert of Seven Springs Hall had become a corpse, plummeting from the sky. When Li Wei arrived at the spot where the body had fallen, he saw Murong Xiao's riddled form and couldn't help but exclaim, truly brutal. The 7 phoenix-winged moth emperors flew toward him, chirping and clamoring for the 9-leaf cattail grass. Li Wei tossed them the remaining cattail grass and immediately squatted down to loot the corpse. He plucked off the money pouch, which felt heavy. When he opened it, it was filled with white Yaoguan coins, at least 50 or 60 of them. That was equivalent to 5 or 600,000 copper coins. For a top 100-strong warrior, it wasn't a fortune. The true treasure on Murong Xiao's body was the 3-meter-long spiritual artifact great bow. Li Wei picked it up and strained to draw it, but the bow's long limbs felt awkward and unbalanced. It would be a perfect fit for a tall, muscular aberrant humanoid martial mystic cultivator. After sinking Murong Xiao's corpse in the river, Li Wei tossed the great bow into the evil camel bell, intending to sell it for money. Standing under the scorching sun, he gazed south along the Sui River. The entire horizon was bathed in immortal radiance, especially a beam of light rising from the ground, so bright it seemed to pierce the very heavens. Li Wei scanned his surroundings and realized he had passed through this area before, located between Yaoguan City and Burial Immortal Town. In other words, the region shrouded in immortal radiance was where Burial Immortal Town lay. What exactly happened in Burial Immortal Town? It's already been a month, and the situation still hasn't calmed down. Li Wei was extremely curious about the commotion nearby, but he dared not get involved. He decided to head first to Yaoguan City, controlled by the Sholi tribe. After a month of eating dried rations, he desperately craved a steaming bowl of noodle soup and a comfortable bed to sleep in. He would set out for the Zhuli hidden sect tomorrow. After the 7 phoenix-winged moth emperors devoured all the cattails, they swarmed around him, fluttering incessantly before his face, nearly blinding him. Gone, gone. I've fed you all the medicinal herbs I bought earlier. Li Wei quickly activated the Tao Ancestors Tai Chi fish, drawing them into the Buddha's relic, finally finding peace. Senior Spirit Tablet had told him that phoenix-winged moth emperors were vegetarian, feeding only on rare and precious medicinal herbs. Raising them to adulthood required an astronomical amount of treasure herbs. Sigh. What a disaster. It feels like I'm raising 7 little ancestors. I'd better go to Yaoguan to buy some medicinal herbs. After all, they're emperor monarch level insects. I can't let them starve to death in their youth. Li Wei disguised himself, smearing dirt on his face and letting his hair fall loose, making him look utterly disheveled and wretched. Though a month had passed, and the rumors had likely died down, it was always better to be cautious than to be in a dangerous situation. Along the way, he saw giant warships sailing up the Sui River toward Burial Immortal Town, martial mystic law experts riding strange beasts speeding past him, and even more formidable figures soaring through the sky on 100-meter-long giant birds, carrying golden, resplendent palaces on their backs. Yaoguan City was bustling with activity. Sect disciples were everywhere, and martial mystic law experts moved in groups. Martial mystic cultivators and spiritual mind masters had flocked here from across Li Province and even the other 6 provinces of the Southern Territory, drawn by the rumors. Li Wei had just entered the city when he caught a familiar scent. Li Ling leapt out from the crowd, lightly tapping him on the shoulder before darting in front of him, her bright eyes and white teeth gleaming as she smiled. You've got guts, coming to Yaoguan. Don't you know many people want to kill you for the bounty? Li Wei froze for a moment. How did you? Your crude disguise might fool others, but it won't fool me. Don't worry, now that you're in Yaoguan, you're in Zhuli clan territory. I'll protect you. Come with me. Li Ling said. Li Wei finally confirmed that Li Ling could indeed pinpoint his location with uncanny accuracy. Where are we going? To see my father. After a moment's thought, Li Ling added, and my mother, my brother, 4th uncle. Oh, and my 16-year-old cousin. This time, it's for real. Li Wei stopped, staring at her with a strange expression. Blank. End of chapter. Novel. The Primordial Law. Volume 2, Zhuli Insect Valley. Chapter 43-70 The Prosperity of Yaoguan. 43rd of Volume 2. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. I'm not going. Li Wei refused outright. If it were First Commander Li Songolin of the Kandli Armor Division, or Kandli's direct invitation, Li Wei wouldn't have been able to decline. After all, both men had shown him great kindness in Zhuli City. Li Songolin, in particular, had helped him secure the challenge qualification for the Zhuli Dao Academy, personally intimidated the Changolin gang, and even risked offending the Yang clan to protect his safety for a month. Li Wei had always kept this debt of gratitude in his heart. But going to meet Li Ling's parents and her entire family. What was that supposed to be? Don't leave. My father, mother, and brother already know about us. Li Ling chased after him, refusing to let him go. Li Wei emphasized, there's nothing between us. If you keep spreading rumors, smearing my reputation, or trying to pressure me with your family's influence, we won't even be friends anymore. I haven't been spreading rumors. Li Ling continued, a month ago, when you were targeted and hunted, I immediately left the Zhuli Dao Academy to search for you. My mother suspected I was too concerned about you and questioned me. I told her you were my best friend and had saved my life multiple times. That's all I said, not a single word of exaggeration. I can swear on the Zhuli god. Li Wei remained silent. He could imagine what Li Ling's mother must have thought after hearing her daughter's explanation. Li Ling asked, don't I even have the right to care about you? Or to delude myself into thinking you're my best friend? Yaoguan city had no city walls, resembling more a massive market town of several 100,000 people. Most of the buildings were constructed from rammed earth and stone, appearing primitive and low. Only a few great clan estates and grand restaurants and inns stood out, built with round timber and reaching 3 or 4 stories high. The immortal radiance anomaly that erupted in Burial Immortal Town had been too dramatic. The entire region was enveloped in its glow, and within a month, it had shaken the 7 southern provinces, sparking countless rumors. Some claimed Burial Immortal Town was an ancient fallen immortal realm, where the fall of a single immortal could bring forth 1,000 treasures. Others said it was a gateway to a corner of the immortal realm, about to open. The thick pillar of light that had shot up from the ground was a path to the immortal realm. Some older, powerful cultivators from Li province had followed the light down, glimpsing otherworldly scenes before hastily retreating, sensing a terrifying aura. Truth and falsehood mingled in the swirling rumors, drawing countless cultivators to the area. This influx of people transformed the small city closest to Burial Immortal Town into a bustling hub it had never been before. Restaurants and inns were overflowing, and prices for rooms and food had skyrocketed. The Shuli tribe, the city's rulers, seized the opportunity to sell a variety of rare resources, including otherworldly coffins, precious medicine, strange beasts, beast eggs, insect eggs, top-secret metal ore, and blood from ancient immortal giant beasts. With enough money, one could buy many rare resources and treasures in Yaoguan City that were otherwise unavailable. Li Wei was quite familiar with Yaoguan City. On his first night in this world, he spent the night here with Xuanhuan. Instead of going to the city's most bustling district, they had headed to the medicinal market in the west. The western district bordered the Mangshan mountain range. Herbalists who gathered herbs from the mountains would bring the freshest specimens here to sell, offering prices far lower than those charged by shops owned by powerful clans and sects. Of course, the quality of the herbs here wasn't very high. 7 larvae. Why would they need such high-quality herbs? But the most crucial reason was that Li Wei was broke, and high-grade herbs were prohibitively expensive. As they entered the medicinal market, the pungent aroma of various herbs filled the air. All the stalls were simple, some even using just a piece of burlap or a straw mat to display their wares. The entire market was chaotic, filled with shouting vendors and haggling customers. Li Ling, who had been following him, couldn't help but say, if you're buying herbs, you should go to the Chamber of Commerce. There's nothing good here. This market attracts all walks of life, and with so many eyes watching, even if someone finds a precious medicine, they'll sell it secretly to the Chamber of Commerce first. The Tianyi Chamber of Commerce has a branch in Yaoguan. If you use your Kandli tribe identity to purchase goods, you can get a significant discount. I have no money, Li Wei said. Li Ling didn't believe him at all. What about the money the Kandli tribe gave you to buy a house? It was a full 200,000 silver coins. Li Wei didn't know how to explain, so he remained silent. He walked to a stall with a wide variety of medicinal herbs and pointed at a meter-long cistanche on the ground. How much for this one? The stall owner, seeing Li Wei's disheveled and impoverished appearance, initially didn't want to bother with him. But when he caught sight of Li Ling behind him, her clothes immaculate and her face like a celestial maiden's, he immediately forced a smile. Young man, you have a keen eye. This is an old medicinal herb, weighing a full 63 catties. 50 silver coins per catty. How many catties would you like? Medicinal herbs take 10 years to mature, 100 years to become precious medicine, and 1,000 years to become a spirit. Only herbs aged over 10 years can be considered medicinal herbs. Even the most basic medicinal herbs start at 5 silver coins. Those considered old medicinal herbs must be at least 50 years old. Herbs that have grown for 100 years or more are called precious medicine. Those that have grown for 1,000 years or more have almost gained sentience, possessing spiritual power and even the ability to take human form. Each one is incredibly precious, known as 1,000-year spirit herb, or 1,000-year demon herb. Li Wei chose this sistanch not because it was particularly rare, but because of its large quantity, which would be enough to feed the 7 little ones for a long time. 50 silver coins per pound. That's too expensive. Can you lower the price? Li Wei frowned. The 9-leaf cattail grass was a precious medicine with a 300-year history, so its high price was understandable. But even a medicinal herb-grade old medicine was shockingly expensive. Buying the entire batch would cost him 3,150 silver coins. All the various coins he had on hand could be exchanged for just over 12,000 silver coins. How long would that last the 7 phoenix-winged moth emperors? The stall owner's expression darkened considerably. 50 silver coins. That's not expensive at all. Gathering herbs is incredibly difficult. Do you know how dangerous the Mengshan mountain range is? Do you know how hard it is to harvest an old medicine? Li Ling walked over to the sistanch, plucked a fingernail-sized piece with her finger, and sniffed it lightly. Sensing something, she smiled. This isn't an old medicine, is it? It looks like it's only about 30 years old. The stall owner retorted, young lady, you've damaged the quality of my old medicine. You'll have to pay compensation. Fine. How much? Li Ling took out a black metal plaque and casually tossed it to the stall owner. The stall owner took the metal plaque, glanced at it, and immediately felt it burn his hand. He couldn't hold it steady. He quickly returned it with a respectful bow and an anxious apology, so it was the Netherlight guide from the Julie Temple. No wonder your eyes are so sharp. No medicinal herb in the world can escape your discerning gaze. Then is this old medicine? Li Ling asked. No, no. The stall owner forced a smile. After retrieving the Netherlight guide's plaque, Li Ling continued, so, what about the price? 30 silver coins per pound. No, 25 silver coins per pound, the stall owner said, his face plastered with a forced smile. Li Ling glanced triumphantly at Li Wei and said, fine. You're a member of the Shou Li tribe, aren't you? Let's go to the Shou Li tribe's ancestral hall in the city right now. You can explain to the elders in charge of tribal law and punishment how you deceived my friend, disrupted market order, and damaged the Shou Li tribe's reputation. In the medicinal market, stall owners usually just made up the age of their herbs, hoping to trick someone. If a knowledgeable buyer agreed on a price, there was rarely any dispute. But this stall owner had offended the wrong person. After all, the Julie Temple was responsible for managing the ancestral halls of all tribes and cities. The stall owner pleaded, how about you set the price, Netherlight guide? Li Wei finally bought the 63 jin 100-pound sistanch for 630 silver coins. Having secured the medicine at a low price, he couldn't pass up the opportunity. So, at the same stall, he selected 6 other aged herbs, and after rounding down the total, spent 2,400 silver coins. Li Wei felt no guilt. If not for Li Ling, his limited knowledge of medicinal herbs would have left him swindled. The stall owner's deception had forced Li Ling to use her authority. After another circuit of the medicinal market, he found no precious medicines. He spent 5 silver coins on a foot-long insect tube and left the market. If he had sufficient funds, he would have preferred to buy precious medicines to feed the phoenix-winged moth emperors. The more valuable their diet, the faster they would grow. He longed to raise the 7 phoenix-winged moth emperors to a battle strength comparable to 7 cultivators in the 5 seas realm. Looks like I'll have to sell some spiritual artifacts, Li Wei thought, idly toying with the newly purchased insect tube. It was made from a section of scarlet gold bamboo, incredibly hard, with air holes and a carrying strap. The phoenix-winged moth emperors were emperor-monarch level rare insects, even Stone Coffin Master and Master Guan hadn't recognized them. Senior Spirit Tablet had said that even in their time, fewer than 10 insect tamers in the entire Lingxiao realm could have identified them. Therefore, she told Li Wei not to worry too much about being exposed. Keeping the phoenix-winged moth emperor in the blood-mud space within the Buddha's relic was perfectly fine. However, if they encountered a powerful enemy and needed to release the moths for help, the secret of his spatial treasure would inevitably be revealed. Li Wei suddenly stopped and turned to Li Ling, who had been following him all along. Aren't you curious why I bought all these things? Even if I were curious, you wouldn't tell me. You're the type who never accepts my kindness. You always think I'm trying to harm you, Li Ling replied. Li Wei thought for a moment, how about I treat you to noodles? A flicker of surprise crossed Li Ling's eyes. You saved me a lot of money today. I should at least thank you. Li Wei led Li Ling to a roadside noodle stall and sat down at a square table facing the street. Sir, 2 bowls of soup noodles, with meat, he called out. Li Ling, dressed in a magnificent gown with pristine white trim on her belt, sleeves, and collar, stood out sharply against the humble surroundings. Her flawless half-immortal physique and exquisitely beautiful features only amplified the contrast. As she sat down beside Li Wei, countless curious and astonished gazes turned their way from both the stall and the street. Envious glances were inevitable. Li Ling handed him a silk scarf. Wipe the dust off your face. No one in Yaoguan dares to touch you. The city is filled with powerful cultivators from the Kandli tribe. Li Wei didn't know how to handle his relationship with Li Ling. He wasn't a cold-hearted person. In fact, he cherished every emotion deeply. He would remember Kai Yutong's bowl of fish soup for the rest of his life. After a long moment of hesitation, he accepted the scarf and wiped his face. The price on my head at the Five Burials Temple should have gone up, right? Just now, walking a few hundred meters from the medicinal market to the noodle stall, Li Wei had spotted at least 3 people tailing him, their eyes filled with hostility and killing intent. There was no help for it. Yaoguan was too small, and Li Ling was too conspicuous. It would have been strange if they hadn't been noticed and recognized walking together. Of course, it was precisely because he was with Li Ling that no one had dared to strike yet. It has, Li Ling replied, it's gone up several times over. Some cultivators in the Five Seas realm are actively searching for you. She continued, now you understand why I must take you to meet my parents, don't you? Only with them will you truly be safe. Once we return to Zhuli City, you can enter the Dao Academy directly and no longer fear assassins from the Five Burials Temple or contract killers from outside. Doesn't admission to the Dao Academy require competition? Li Wei chuckled. Li Ling laughed. After that battle a month ago, you painted an entire street red and stained the Sui River crimson. Who would dare underestimate you now? Top 100 strong warriors Yao Zhengsheng and Lu Shen both fell at your hands. Admission to the Dao Academy is now completely unobstructed. Fourth uncle even intends to make you his successor. A man's reputation precedes him. You've already gained some fame among the younger generation. Just some fame? Li Wei asked. Li Ling replied, without breaking the ninth spring ancestral field, possessing a pure immortal physique, or entering the Five Seas realm, how much fame do you expect? My brother has all 3, yet he still hasn't become world-renowned. 2 steaming bowls of noodle soup were served, their fragrant aroma filling the air. The meat was generously portioned, each bowl containing over a dozen slices. Li Wei had just begun to eat when a plump teenager, around 15 or 16 years old, burst into the stall, panting heavily. He collapsed onto the square table where Li Wei and Li Ling were sitting and shouted, I'm starving. Shopkeeper, 10 bowls of noodle soup. The shopkeeper by the stove paused for a moment, how many people? Don't you have eyes? Can't you see? There's only one of me here, the chubby boy said, slapping the table, cut the chatter. You won't be shortchanged. Li Ling glanced around, but there were no empty tables. She couldn't very well drive him away. The chubby boy's eyes fell on the untouched bowl of noodles in front of her. He rubbed his hands together and said with a familiar smile, I don't think a goddess like you, with a pure immortal physique, would normally eat in a place like this. How about you let me have this bowl of noodles? It's hard to tell the difference between a half-immortal physique and a pure immortal physique just by looking at them. You've got a sweet tongue, Li Ling said, go ahead and eat. I'm not hungry. Thank you so much. The chubby boy quickly took the bowl and asked, my name is Shi. What are your names? Li Ling replied, Li Ling, from the Kandli tribe. Xie Tianshu, also from the Kandli tribe. Li Wei secretly sized up the chubby boy who had suddenly appeared. He couldn't detect any fluctuations of spiritual power or psychic telekinesis power, nor any sense of danger. He seemed like an ordinary person. But for an ordinary person without cultivation to be in Yaoguan City at this time was itself a strange thing. As the chubby young man wolfed down his noodles, he somehow managed to talk and comment on the crowd passing by on the street. Brother Tianshu, did you see that carriage pulled by fire lizards? That's the young lord of Li City in Ji Prefecture's carriage. The Li clan is really flourishing. They produced a great figure, and in a few decades, they might even have a chance to become the second ancient myriad sects in the southern territory. This young lord is only 17 years old, yet he's already broken through to the Five Seas realm from the Nine Springs realm. Too bad he has a mortal physique. If he had a pure immortal physique, he'd be truly extraordinary. Sister Ling, did you see those dozen or so young men in blue martial robes? The one leading them is Chen Wenwu, the top talent of the younger generation of the Sanchen Academy. He's one of the top 10 figures in Li province under 30 years old. Maybe even top 5. Shui Zheng, ranked 4th in the Seven Springs Hall of Lizhou, is here too. He's no slouch either. At less than 25 years old, his combat prowess below the Five Seas realm is comparable to a pure immortal physique. Once he breaks through to the Five Seas realm, he'll transform from a carp into a dragon. Only then did Li Wei and Li Ling finally turn their gazes to the street. As expected, Shui Zheng's tall figure, carrying a spiritual artifact longsword on his back, strode closer, his gaze fixed on the noodle stall. In the sunlight, his silver skin shone with an almost blinding brilliance. Accompanying Shui Zheng were Shu Changgulan and Tang Yan, 2 Five Seas realm experts from the Changgulan gang. However, in terms of bearing and mental state, both 5C's realm experts seemed to be a step behind. Everyone on the street sensed the unusual danger. Except for martial mystic cultivators confident in their own strength, the rest retreated far away. Li Ling, of course, knew their intentions were hostile. She stood up abruptly and stepped out of the stall. The Chang'an gang's audacity grows bolder by the day. I haven't even come looking for trouble with you yet, and you've delivered yourselves to my doorstep. Do you think you can kill someone in Yaoguan City without going through me? Shui Zheng clasped his hands in a formal salute. Fourth miss, you misunderstand. I came to inquire about Brother Li's injuries and offer my condolences. If he has recovered, I would like to spar with him. After all, everyone now claims Li Wei is the #1 Spring Surge Realm cultivator of the younger generation in Li Province. Shui Zheng has never been defeated, yet he's been unfairly overshadowed. It's naturally left me somewhat dissatisfied. Shu Chenggulan said, young people should exchange ideas and spar more. They're both top talents in the Spring Surge realm. It's perfectly fair. Li Ling retorted, I've never heard anyone call him the #1 young talent in the Spring Surge realm in Li Province. That title belongs to my brother. Why doesn't your Shui sect send someone to challenge him? Shui Zheng's gaze fell on Li Wei, I only want to spar. Are you too afraid to face me? A man who hides behind a woman will never achieve greatness. Li Wei finished the last spoonful of soup in his bowl. Shopkeeper, the bill. I'll pay for his 10 bowls of noodles too. Li Wei had already escaped one assassination attempt by treating someone to noodles. He couldn't quite read the little fatty before him, so he figured it wouldn't hurt to do him a good turn. After all, 10 bowls of noodles weren't that expensive. As they left the stall, Li Wei squinted at Shui Zheng, who stood with his back to the setting sun. I just finished eating. Intense combat isn't advisable right now. Let's reschedule for another day. Besides, I'm not hiding behind her. She's the one who insisted on protecting me. If you're so capable, why don't you find a great mind master to protect you? A great mind master as beautiful as a goddess descending to the mortal realm, corrected the chubby boy from within the stall. Li Wei naturally didn't want to fight Shui Zheng, let alone defeat or kill him. If he did, his enemies and the assassins would reassess his strength, and the pressure he faced would only intensify. By avoiding a confrontation, he could make his enemies underestimate him. Shui Zheng studied Li Wei intently, as if trying to reacquaint himself with the man. The ruthless figure who had slaughtered his way through the Sui River was completely unfazed. Clatter. A bullock cart slowly approached. The azure bull pulling the cart was even larger than an elephant, with golden eyes, shimmering skin, and bronze-like hooves and horns, clearly no ordinary creature. Seeing the azure bull, everyone knew the first commander of the Kandli armor had arrived. They bowed respectfully or retreated. The cart stopped beside Li Wei and Li Ling. Li Songgulan's voice called from within, both of you, get in. Li Wei knew the first commander had rushed here out of concern for his safety, to lend him support. He felt a surge of emotion. After Li Ling boarded first, Li Wei turned to Shui Zheng and Tang Yan and said, I saw Marong Xiao outside the city earlier. Without waiting to see the expressions on Shui Zheng's face and those of his companions, Li Wei climbed directly onto the bull cart and entered the carriage. Li Songgulan sat in the main seat facing the carriage door, his expression grim. He then said with a bitter smile, I'm sorry. I thought I could protect you for a month, but it seems others didn't give me any face. This time, I've lost face badly, and there's no way to recover it. Li Songgulan didn't explain why it couldn't be recovered, and Li Wei naturally wouldn't be so tactless as to press for details. He said, I'm already deeply grateful, senior. If you hadn't sheltered me for over 20 days, I wouldn't have had a shred of life left that night. Li Songgulan finally smiled. You broke through to the 8th Spring Wind Palace. Earlier, Li Wei had told him he was at the 7 Springs opening cultivation level. Since he had survived that night a month ago and even slain several top 100-strong warriors, it was clear he had achieved a breakthrough, earning himself a sliver of life. Li Wei hesitated, considering whether to deceive Li Songgulan. He truly didn't want to lie to this venerable elder, but ultimately nodded, fortunately, I broke through to the Wind Palace. Otherwise, I'd be nothing but bones by now. Li Songgulan had already suspected this, so he wasn't surprised. He smiled and said, you were right not to impulsively accept Shui Zheng's challenge. I was actually a little worried that your personality was too rigid. Too rigid breaks easily. True swordsmanship lies in combining strength and flexibility. Shui Zheng is already a silver pure immortal physique. With his martial arts cultivation, no one below the 5C's realm in Li Province can match him. Even the hidden 9 Springs martial mystic artists of the various major powers might not be able to defeat him. If you had accepted his challenge just now, he would have likely cleaved you in two with a single strike. And no one could avenge you, because you would have agreed yourself. If you couldn't even withstand a single move, you'd have no one to blame but yourself. As Li Songgulan spoke, he observed Li Wei's expression. The pure immortal physique wasn't limited to flawless, jade-like skin. Some bodies transformed into silver, gold, or glazed crystal, with no inherent difference in combat strength. Li Wei showed no signs of disappointment or dejection. He didn't believe he would lose to Shui Zheng, who had transformed from a half-immortal physique to a pure immortal physique. Instead, he asked curiously, the major powers have hidden 9 springs martial mystic cultivators. So the 7 springs hall rankings are just for fun. Li Songlin shook his head. The 7 springs hall rankings still carry considerable weight. Very few young martial mystic cultivators can open all 9 springs, and those who do immediately break through to the 5 seas realm, concealing this secret. When a pure immortal physique opens all 9 springs, it's almost universally known. Such prodigies are immediately courted by major powers, who use them as figureheads for publicity and cultivation. No one dares to kill them easily. The ancient myriad sects and ancient myriad factions call them successors, inheritors. But how many pure immortal physiques are there? The number of ordinary humans is thousands or even tens of thousands of times greater than the number of pure immortal physiques. Even though cultivation is far more difficult for them, some ordinary humans still manage to open all 9 springs. However, they almost always remain obscure, deliberately hidden from public view. According to my information, in the past decade, the Zhu clan has produced 6 young martial mystic cultivators who have opened all 9 springs. Kang Li is merely the strongest among them. The other 5 are 4 ordinary humans and 1 aberrant humanoid. Li Wei remarked, the Zhu clan's population exceeds 10 million. In a decade, only 6 have opened all 9 springs. The ancestral field truly is as difficult to pass as ascending to the heavens. As a strong ancient clan, the Kangli tribe hasn't produced a single 9 springs genius besides Kang Li in the last 30 years. Li Songlin chuckled bitterly. After telling you all this, I want you to understand that you must strive to break through to the 9th spring. Only by opening your ancestral field will you stand a chance of defeating Shui Zheng and overcoming your physical limitations. If you truly succeed, even those with higher cultivation levels will look at you with respect, and your status within the Zhu clan will change dramatically. Though Li Songlin was already 52, he still referred to himself as old man. Yet he appeared to be only in his early 30s, with a relaxed and carefree air about him. Li Wei replied, this junior will certainly give it a try. I won't rush to break through to the 5 seas realm. Li Songlin nodded in satisfaction and finally got to the main point of his lecture. Do you know why Shui Zheng was able to transform into a pure immortal physique in such a short time? Why? Li Ling asked. Li Songlin said, it was Shui family's chief who found a rare medicine infused with immortal haze near Burial Immortal Town and gave it to him to consume. The Shui sect was formed by 7 clans. The Yang clan was the leading clan, while the Shui clan ranked last. Since that old fool managed to cultivate a pure immortal physique, I naturally must cultivate a genius capable of opening the 9 springs to surpass him, Li Songlin said with a smile, looking at Li Wei. As it happens, I also harvested a rare medicine infused with immortal haze just a few days ago. Li Wei was moved. He had thought Li Songlin's discussion of the 9 springs ancestral field was merely meant to encourage him, never expecting him to offer such a treasure. Li Ling pouted, 4th uncle, I'm still a half-immortal physique. With such a rare medicine, why are you thinking of outsiders first? Li Songlin replied, even though both are infused with immortal haze, the effects of different medicines vary. The one I harvested is particularly suited to helping martial mystic open their wind palace and ancestral fields. In the clan, who else has a chance of opening their ancestral field? Li Songlin's decision to give the rare medicine to Li Wei was based on 2 factors. First, Li Wei's combat prowess at the 8th Spring Realm was already formidable, easily placing him among the top 10 of the 100-strong warriors. His chances of successfully opening his ancestral field were high. Second, he had heard Kang Li's account of the events in Zhu City a month ago. Li Wei had bravely faced numerous enemies alone to protect his companions. The courage and character he displayed in that desperate situation were truly remarkable, and Li Songlin greatly desired to make him his disciple. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel.